Hi there, so I've been testing around with Milio's kit, and his abilities have some quite interesting interactions that we'll be taking a look at today. So first of all, you can apply your passive to yourself with your W, your E, and your R. So E applies it when you first walk into the zone, as well as it says in the ability, whenever 3 seconds have passed. Your E applies it for each new shield, so even if you renew it. But you cannot apply it with Q. But it does apply it if you hit an ally. Like this, just like Nami for instance. Your passive can be applied when your ability or auto attack is mid-air. So for instance you auto and then you E, and it deals more damage. And this isn't due to area procking it. So if we just do like this, we see the same thing happens. Next up, your passive unfortunately doesn't proc any spell effects, so Ludens won't be procced even though the passive procs. Liandry's won't either. Unfortunately, this does mean you cannot use it to proc Rylai's. Next up, your passive only seems to apply to damaging abilities. At least when I use it with my Q, it's only the damaging part that procs it. So we apply it here, no damage, and then it comes in at the end. You can of course use the same trick as with auto attacks, so if you're firing Q and then E, you'll still get the passive buff on your Q. So you could wait until you know for sure if it's gonna hit someone, and then you E, and you proc it. Your passive only applies on one target in the AoE. So here, that's a bit hard to see, but it only applies to one target even though we hit 2 of them. And we can see there's no burn on this one. This one's quite surprising, but even though your passive says attack or ability, it also procs with active items. Unfortunately not with Liandry's or Demonic, but here we activate it, and then we see it procs with Everfrost. This also means that we can test with Gore Drinker. Oh, sorry, wrong item. And here we can see that it procs on the closest target. And you can see here that it doesn't proc from Liandry's. So it's still burning, but we don't get the passive proc. We still have it here. Next up we have Q. So this part is really interesting. You can actually pull people or choose which way you knock them if you flash while you're casting your Q. Watch this. Oh, so if you cast it while it's already in the air, it knocks them back. But if you cast it while you're casting it, so if you flash while you're casting it, they'll be knocked the same way as you flash. So in this way you could actually use it to pull people into your team, and I find that's pretty useful. But I do think it might be a bug, since it doesn't seem it should be applying in that way, since it says knock back. Do note that your Q still fires from the same place though. So it does seem very useful in some cases. You can also knock enemies over thin walls with your Q. And of course, since we can pull them back, that'll work with walls too. And just for those who haven't really seen how the ability works, it doesn't really do anything if you miss it. So you only get the explosion part if you hit someone. So when you use W, you get your passive the first time you enter and then every 3 seconds, so you could actually run away from it to delay when you get the effect. I don't know if this would be very useful, but if you want someone to have the effect a little bit longer or something, you could wait for a second more if you place it next to them instead of on them. So as for your E, every time you apply it, even if it's a new stack when you already have a shield, you get your passive. The movement speed on your E also stacks, so it increases even more when I get the 2 stacks. So as for using the auto and then ability mechanic, mostly these 3, since you can't really apply your passive on yourself with Q, it does seem like a pretty nice way to trade, to be honest. And on top of that, if you play together with the range of your W, you could start a trade with an auto, and then another auto with a W after it, and then you get the burn each time, and then the fact that you have your W from the second attack and on means that you'll likely get the third attack. But of course, if you're out of range, you could choose to cast your W earlier. And of course, we can also put a Q into that. So if you choose that you want to proc something with Q instead, just like we talked about earlier, you could use Q instead of an auto. E is very useful for granting these passive stacks, but your alt will grant them to your entire team, as well as yourself. Right, so that's it for now. I hope these help you learn what Milio's kit does so far, and if it's not a bug, I hope we see some cool plays with the insect Qs. Thanks for watching and have a good time.